At some point, you have to start wondering, maybe these guys aren't as smart as they say they are. I don't know.
We all know how we got here. For years now, we've heard a small minority in this country rail against government. When I hear the latest tirades from some of the extremists in the House, I am struck by how vague these complaints are.
That's interesting. And that might be true, too, for all I know about the House. I mean, what are the vague... I mean, though some of the things don't seem vague to me. I mean, for instance, it doesn't seem vague to me when somebody complains about lack of privacy under the NSA and the fact that the NSA has been spying on American citizens. This was done by some of that small minority, not her folks at all. It wasn't. It's stirred up by Snowden, but certainly it was first in her Senate with Rand Paul, who's part of that clique of very small minority of people. But then there's also questions about debt, the accumulation of huge amounts of debt. And they're merely parroting what Barack Obama himself said in 2006. I mean, we have Barack Obama on record saying that it's horrible, horrible, horrible to pile on debt for the children of the future to pay. And then when he became the person who was in charge of accumulating debt, and that's his main job, accumulating debt, apparently.
And helping the American people.
Accumulate debt. Then of course he switched his tune just like that, and we have her saying that it's just a small minority of Americans, being awfully vague. I don't know. It doesn't seem vague to me to oppose. Now it is true the politicians have a hard time deciding what programs to cut. That's a real problem for them. All politicians, because they all get sucked in to anybody who raises a fuss about their ox being gored. They seem, oh, we're hurting somebody. And the inability of anyone to rationally judge any program other than the fact that it serves a constituency is a problem. It's a problem that both parties share. And her solution is to, if some constituency, whether it's poor mothers or bankers on Wall Street or whoever, if they really say they really need it, the country's going to fall apart without it. You know, if all they do is say it, she's willing to spend. You know, I mean, that's what she seems to be doing.
If the Congress wasn't filled with Republican ideologues, you would seem to be renting your clothes.
Well, I think it's
not in the economic sense.
It's what Job did when you start hearing nonsense. I think that's an appropriate. Actually, the Sanhedrin did that when they condemned Jesus to death. So I think we should all rend our clothing every time we hear a
senator speaks.
Yes, every time. Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, if the Congress wasn't filled with Republican ideologues, maybe we could do the people's business.
Well, if the Congress wasn't filled with if Congress didn't have 4 or 5 Republican ideologues, and what she really means is Tea Party ideologues, people who don't like the accumulation of debt and want to cut back on some government services, and that's what Tea Party is all about. It's basically some people who are saying it's time to stop accumulating debt. It's time to stop deficit spending, and what that means, of course, that shouldn't be a partisan position. That's something that she should be it for. There's no reason to spend more than you get in revenue. That's American people are trying to learn this. It's very hard in the age of inflation when you're constantly tempted to go into debt. I understand that, and I think that she should understand it, to be sympathetic with the normal Americans who are often in debt over their heads, as she is with, for instance, student loans, which government encouraged them to get into. And government inflation, the whole inflationary environment where money loses value over time, does encourage you to become a debtor. And that's why she is for unending debt. Unless, of course, she means higher and higher taxes, at which point she'll find herself in a really interesting position. Right.
Well, the good people in the country agree that paying higher taxes is necessary.
Well, I don't know if that's true, because, of course, I don't define good by...
Think we should support our society?
What?
It's our duty as citizens to contribute to the health of our society.
Yes, and the first thing you do is you never commit suicide in public. And one way to commit suicide is to go far, far into debt. And the way to stop that is to stop spending over your revenues. And it's really, I mean, if you want to get a new program above your current revenue levels, how they should do it in Washington, so how they used to do it in California before they changed it and went crazy, was that you had a revenue for 1 year. The next year, you don't spend any more than the revenue you got the previous year. So that means that's all you could spend unless you raise revenue in some new way. And if you have to go get a bond measure, then you have to go by the vote of the people. If you had to do tax, and of course you have to go on record and say we want to increase this tax. But what they do in Washington D.C. is the opposite. They spend the money and then they worry about how they're going to pay for it. And what ends up being is just to go further into debt. This is the opposite of responsibility. It is irresponsible to the extreme. Normal Americans know this. People who don't know this aren't at all responsible. They're called progressives.
Okay, so we've established you're okay with the poor starving to death. So let's
that's nothing to do with that.
Let's move on.
It has nothing to do with that.
Go ahead and click your play button.
From their rhetoric, you'd think they believe that any time that we, the people, come together to improve our lives, that the nation is committing some terrible wrong. From their rhetoric, you'd think they believe that the government that functions best is a government that doesn't function at all.
No, actually, their line is probably, she's riffing on Thomas Jefferson, who said that government governs best that governs least. And she's actually saying the government's not at all. Of course, it has nothing to do with government's not at all. It's a question of, is there any limit to what you'll spend and spend? And she's saying, no, we can't, because the world depends on every last dollar we get from us, the government, which gets it from you, the people. So that you, the people, need it from us because we get it from you, the people. That doesn't make a great deal of sense. Of course, until she gets to her redistribution agenda, we take from the people who have lots and give it to people who have none.
Well, there are people with way more than they need, and I think that's what most reasonable progressives are talking about. We're not talking about taxing everybody. We're talking about those filthy rich 1%ers who have more than enough.
Right. Well, actually, they have more than enough for you and me. They have more than enough of themselves, and what they do is they save and invest, and they do various things with it, and they spend their money, and they do a lot of great contributions to society.
But I think a lot of what they do is not right. I mean, they spend it on things that they just shouldn't be spending it on.
Well, that's what you ought to say. I don't see why we should believe you. I mean, frankly, when I see what people spend money on, I think, when I hear about Jimmy Kimmel's huge television set, I think, wow, that's amazing. I think I'd kind of like it, but I don't know if I'd spend that kind of money on it because I think I'd get a projector. But anyway, he has an LCD that's like huge. Anyway, he's a rich guy with lots of money, and he's spent it on something he really adores. And I don't see why you and I should be criticizing him for his spending habits. But that's because he actually is making his money and spending it and not going in debt. Now, if he goes into debt and he goes insolvent, then that's kind of a problem, and I think he recognized that too. I don't think that's the case with Jimmy Kimmel. It is the case with the U.S. government, and it is the case with Elizabeth Warren and her direction for the U.S. government. Yeah.
So far, they haven't ended government, but they have achieved the next best thing, shutting the government down.
Okay. So she thinks that they want no government, so their method of doing this, their second best method, instead of legislating it all out of existence, her big anarchist fear, she's actually calling them anarchists without saying the word, which is risible when you listen to what these Tea Party people are saying. I mean, they're not even talking about getting rid of Social Security. They're just talking about balancing budgets. I mean, this is just so silly that one has to wonder, does she have an honest bone in her body?
Well, rhetoric is that government should be small enough to be drowned in the bathtub.
Well, that's one guy's rhetoric, and that's, of course, a joke he was making, just like many people make jokes.
But these people are serious. These people are threats to our democracy. And somebody needs to take a stand, and Elizabeth Warren is finally taking a stand and saying, enough. Government is good. It performs an important service.
Well, I mean, actually, I don't want to be a defender of the Tea Party exactly, but the Tea Party people I've seen just don't understand how government is better when it is insolvent. That government governs best, which governs insolvently. It's certainly not a model that we can.
But Democrats want to fund it. It's the Republicans who won't let them do what needs to be done.
Well, that's an interesting statement. The government gets in, quite a bit of revenue every year. And who's stopping? I mean, to blame, what Democrats are saying is, if you don't give us every tax we want, what are Democrats going to do? We're not going to stop spending. We're not going to stop spending. We're going to go into debt, and it's up to you to raise taxes. And you're wrong to do so. They're not willing to give any compromise whatsoever. They're saying, once and again, is that we'll never stop spending. We're always going to increase it. And that's what they do to the Obamacare, is they're increasing spending on social projects. And we're not going to, until you do exactly what we want, we're not going to change our tune one little bit. Now, what kind of responsibility? That's not what you say in your home when you say, oh, we ran out of money. Let's go and put some more on the credit card. That's exactly what they say every time. They never, ever stop spending. And all the Tea Party people are saying, as far as I can tell, I mean, I don't see them saying anything radical, just keep within your means, folks. And if you want to have a new program, propose a tax to pay for it, enact the tax. If you get your way, then start the program. First things first. Get your revenue first, then do the spending. And Democrats are insisting always, do the spending, then find the revenue. They have a shortfall in revenue, then they keep on they keep on accumulating debt. That's what they do, and they have no compromise. And they look at any compromise as an attack on all government. All it is, I mean, this is weird to me. I mean, I have a hard time understanding how a Democrat can't be for a Tea Party idea. There's no reason on the planet that you cannot fund government programs and the welfare state even. I mean, Finland and Canada do it. And if you have to go to Europe and Canada, as progressives always want to do, well, they do it. They fund their welfare states without going into debt. America does not. It's America that's crazy. It's not Canada and Finland in this case. So the question is, why are they complaining about the Tea Party when all the Tea Party is saying is put your priorities straight, you dimwits?
I don't know. A lot of the Tea Partiers seem like they're anarchists. Like they don't like government and they don't want government.
Well, I've never been a Tea Party anarchist. I know anarchists. I know anarchists of all sorts, and not one Tea Party person I've ever met sounds like an anarchist. So if a Tea Partier sounds like an anarchist to you, you may have a problem. I'm just saying that you might have to consider your premises, because it's one thing to hear somebody say we want less government, and then to say and to convert that into no government. It's insane. This is a very weird thing. I know.
Obviously never listen to any Republicans.
Oh, I just listen to them all the time.
Government and all the good things we can do. They hate the poor. They love their big business buddies. And they hate the government. I mean, if you haven't heard those speeches, then I don't know where your head's been.
Okay, well, we have an impasse here because we apparently have two radically different views of the world. The Republicans, of course, Republicans are buddy-buddy with big businesses, but so are Democrats. In fact, Democrats get more money right now from big business lobbies than Republicans do. So that's not a real big shock. Democrats, in fact, there's been studies about this, about how politicians spend their money.
How much those top-secret Koch brothers are giving to people.
Well, we do know it's actually reported. I mean, that's not a real big question, and they gave it to various groups.
Yeah, but they're doing it insidiously.
And George Soros is not doing it insidiously. When George Soros spends millions and millions of dollars on his various weird projects, that's not insidious at all. For instance, I'm on MoveOn.org's list. I get there every day. I get something or several somethings from MoveOn.org. It's supported by Soros. It may have a lot of grassroots, but it was the grassroots that were fed with money by George Soros, and that's okay. I don't mind. George Soros can give all the.
But he does it out in the open, and he doesn't have anything to gain from it. The Koch brothers do it in sleazy, sneaky ways, and it's to their advantage.
How on earth is it to their advantage? These are guys who oppose war, oppose the drug war, who spend millions of dollars on those causes, who kind of like gay marriage and have been trying to get Republicans not to be upset by gay marriage. They've been trying to, and they've been trying to do things that have nothing to do with any of their business. These are oil men, and most of their policy advocacy has nothing to do with oil. Most of it has nothing to do with energy. Some of it does. And by the way, Kochs have occasionally spent money to go against the principles and support what Democrats would consider de regista policies, special tax loopholes and special this and special that. They've done this to their criticism of their fans in the libertarian circles, and they've done this And it was obviously just like every other business does it because they want to get ahead and use the government to their favor. But most of the time they're saying, let's not play games here. Let's not rig the deck for one oil company over another. Let's not rig the deck for one other, one kind of industry over another. Let's just let the markets decide things, because the markets, after all, decide on the basis of consumer demand. And people are actually paying money to decide what they want, and they're getting what they think they want, and they learn from their mistakes. And it's an amazing system. I'm for it. I just love the market. The only thing better than the market is probably the internet, and that's sort of market based too.
Well, it was invented by the government, though. But that's a whole different.
That's a very.
But anyway, you've clearly been bought off by the Koch brothers' money. So
I wish I'd been bought off. I agree with the Kochs on a lot of things, and they should give me lots of money, because I've done a lot of work for their causes. But so far, they've given me not a dime. I don't know. Something's wrong here.
You have to know what you're typical of the libertarian, the white male libertarian. You don't even know what's in your interest. I mean, you're not a rich man, you're a poor man, and here you are shilling for corporate interest and criticizing the institution that tries to help you, the government.
Well, actually,
and you ought to be ashamed.
I ought to be ashamed. Yeah, I'm desperately ashamed about my interest in free markets as opposed to corporatism. I'm an anti-corporatist, and to be called a shill for corporations is a bizarre thing for me, because our crowd, the kind of liberal that I am, is an Adam Smith liberal. The people who fought against mercantilism in the heady days of the nation state of the 1600s and 1800s, 1700s and 1800s, and the message always then was help the consumer by limiting the power of business to get special favors from government. Okay, that's what the business of liberalism was, and that's the kind of liberal I am. And we're not shills to any corporation. In fact, the shills to corporations are those people who want to abandon the project of limiting business and any activity by the rule of law, and instead set up special legislation and regulation programs that micromanage everything so that some people can be helped at the expense of others. These people are the real shills for corporations, and these people are called progressives. And if you look at the history of progressivism, much of it was funded and in fact the push for it came from large trusts and big businesses. Because they wanted to secure their position in the economy, in the market economy, because markets are inherently fluid. They change, and a corporation can lose dominance almost overnight. A&P used to be one of the biggest companies in the United States, and they're almost nowhere anymore. There are these Montgomery Ward's is out of business. Sears is now a small company compared to what it once was. These are companies that lost their prominence because people decided, well, we don't like your product that much anymore. I don't like going to Sears anymore. I'd rather buy things on Amazon.com. So Amazon is now ascendant, but it'll probably go down one day. Microsoft is kind of iffy right now. Apple's still going up, but all of these will someday die. There's nothing special about any corporation, and I don't want any corporation to have an upper hand. I want the rule of law that allows competition.
Where do you think law comes from, though? I mean, you want to destroy the government, so how?
No, I don't want to destroy the government. I'm for the law, for instance. I'm for police. I'm for a judiciary, and I'm for, in fact, the tradition I come from are the theoreticians of the rule of law. And we know, for instance, the law doesn't just come from government. That is, of course, this has actually been disproven so nicely in legal theory and in legal research, vast histories of this subject, is that law comes from the adjudications in court cases at common law and in merchant law and in various forms of private law that were usurped by legislatures over time, and at first sometimes improved, but over time legislators have a tendency to be bought off by big moneyed interests. The 19th century was rife with legislatures that were wholly bought off by big moneyed interests, and that's because these...
Well, this is more of that libertarian revisionism. I defy you to show me actual proof of any of these strange historical views that you're giving. So we don't have much longer. We better finish Miss Warren if we're going to do this under 30 minutes.
Oh my God, Miss Warren,
But
I forgot
behind
about
all
her.
the slogans of the Tea Party and all the thinly veiled calls for anarchy in Washington, behind all that, there's a reality.
She actually used the A word. I think a person who thinks the Tea Parties are anarchists is another kind of A word all entirely.
The American people don't want the extremist Republicans' bizarre vision of a future without government.
Okay, I can't listen to her anymore. A person that committed to lying shouldn't be listened to. At some point, you have to stop. The Republicans are not saying life without government. They want limited government for the same reason they want liberty. Liberty is all about limits. Now, this is only the small group of people who understand it. Most Republicans love the welfare state. Most Republicans are Main Street Republicans or part of the cultural far right, which is mainly concerned about making sure people don't have sex with people they don't like. It's mainly about where you put your private parts. That's one group of people. But the Tea Party people are just concerned with the normal concerns of limiting government for the same reason we want people to be free, so that no one's being bullied around by criminals. And the ultimate form of criminality is large government. Just ask anyone who's come out of the Soviet Union. It's big government triumphant, and that was a totalitarian state, and they're afraid of some cataclysmic, either insufferable tyranny or chaos as a result of financial meltdown, because they cannot stop spending over their revenues.
Well, I'm going to make you continue to watch your speech, because that's the whole point of this video.
They don't support it. Why? Because the American people know that without government, we would no longer be a great nation with a bright future.
Okay,
we're never going to get through this if you keep.
Yeah, well, but every point of it is just so silly. I mean, I've known anarchists, people who follow Kropotkin and Proudhon and Josiah Warren, and they really don't want government. Some of them don't even want any institutions of law and police or anything.
Leftists.
Yeah, that, and I'm talking about some, mutualists and things like that, and they have a real antipathy. Some of these people have a real antipathy to the institutions of private property and so forth, and law and police, and you talk to a Tea Party Republican, and these people are real law and order people, and they don't understand how you can. They consider American government now lawless that won't obey their own laws. They have real law and order credentials. They're more into law and order than I am.
Well, these are the leftists you can actually get along with.
No, but some of these are rightists. I mean, the Tea Party people, I was switching over to the law and order Tea Party people. They aren't for no government. In no way can you say the Tea Party is for no government. And say it.
So you don't like them for that reason, right?
No, I like government. I'm all for government. I've never said that I was against government. I don't think you can even find my writings where I've said government is bad. I believe that government works on the principles of limitations and hormesis. If you have to have an analogy or a metaphor is government is a drug. In small doses, in the right places, government does great good. It saves your life. Right? That's just wonderful. But in large doses or in the wrong situations, it's the wrong drug and you die. Or you become ballooned and bloated and suffer from other illnesses, like the people who take one drug too much and find out they have diabetes, or take one drug too much and they find all of a sudden that they have a heart condition, or that their lungs collapse. I mean, there's all sorts of misuse of drugs is a real problem in America. People don't really understand how to handle it sometimes. And one of the things, but the drug they have the least ability to handle is government. So we should be very careful about the drugs we prescribe, and the drug that she can't prescribe with a damn is government.
Well, keep going. She may convince you yet.
The American people know that government matters. The Anarchy gang is quick to malign government. But when was the last time anyone called for regulators to go easier on companies that put lead in children's toys?
Well, actually, I have heard that.
Or for food
because most children don't even aren't even harmed by lead in some toys.
Oh, so you're all for poisoning. Now we're getting down to brass tacks.
No, it's just.
Let's establish that you're okay with poisoning children with lead.
No, I just didn't say that. Some toys. It depends on whether. I mean, people should know what's happening. If your kid isn't putting something in his mouth, Now, little kids shouldn't have lead toys. I agree. But if you have a toy with a lead alloy in it, and you're 10 years old playing with it, you're not going to have any problems. I mean, I spent much of my childhood cutting lead sinkers for my father. I didn't wind up horribly disfigured. Lead is.
But look at you now.
Exactly.
Or for food inspectors to stop checking whether the meat in our grocery stores is crawling with deadly bacteria. Or for the FDA to ignore whether morning sickness drugs will cause horrible deformities in little babies.
Most of the inspections don't happen at grocery stores. You realize that it happens down the line, and that there are other forms that if I were concerned about my meat supply, I might, for instance, more likely to buy it from the local farmer, and buy it directly from him, and at no point will it be inspected.
Well, wait a minute, but you missed the one about rapacious drug companies who put things out that harm future generations. So they don't care. If the government, what was the
future generations?
Remember the thalidomide thing?
Yeah, that's because it turns out that you shouldn't prescribe it to pregnant women.
And the government should have been in there telling them that.
They didn't know that until they prescribed it to pregnant women. I mean, and then they stopped it. I mean, sometimes people have learned things. It takes time to learn. And
but if the government wasn't overlooking them, boy, you can be sure that the businesses would be trying to get away with all kinds of stuff. But that's another argument. We can talk about that later. I think let's just agree that I'm right on this and move on.
We never hear that. Not from political leaders in Washington and not from the American people. In fact, whenever the Anarchy gang makes headway in their efforts to damage our government, the opposite happens. After the sequester kicked in, Republicans immediately turned around and called on us to protect funding for our national defense and keep the air traffic controllers on the job. And now that the House Republicans have shut down the government,
Okay, whoa. What happened there? The House Republicans shut down the government? The House Republicans, as I understand it, had three things they wanted. They wanted the Democrats to compromise on three things. It was all about Obamacare, because they thought it was going to be a disaster. What? But
it's the law of the land. It's unpatriotic. I mean, they're advocating resisting the law.
No, they're advocating change. We change laws all the time. And in fact, Obamacare was a reform. If it turns out that some of the things didn't work, then it should have been reformed. And why the three things they said, we'll go ahead with this government idea, this funding government here, but you have to give us three things. Now, I'm not saying it was a good idea for them to do that. I don't know. I'm not a politician. It sounded kind of suspicious to me as like a not very workable plan. But they were kind of desperate. I mean, let's be frank. They're desperate.
But you're willing to admit they shut down our government.
No, actually, I think the Democrats shut down the government. It's obvious is that who wouldn't compromise? The Republicans that wanted to defund Obamacare weren't allowed to. So that's not going to happen. They were told not to do it, and they didn't. What they did is they asked for three little things in Obamacare: one, tax to go away, and to postpone some regulations, and just three little things. And the Democrats balked at that, and so they're the ones that wouldn't compromise a bit. And they're the ones that shut down government. Why is it when you need the cooperation of the House and the Senate, and they don't agree, and something happens, it's only one side's fault? It doesn't make sense. It's not even logical. It is partisan nonsense. Anybody who proclaims this wasn't a problem of partisan compromise, and it was. That's what it was. A partisan problem with compromise. If you don't even acknowledge that's what's going on, if you call it a Republican problem or a House problem, you are actually part of the problem. You're not recognizing the actual constituent causes and effects. And to say it was a Republican show.
Seen those Republicans either. They're all dicks. I mean, if you saw how they.
Well, frankly, I think she's a dick, but that doesn't matter. You still have. I mean, in politics, that's what you do is you make compromises. But they wouldn't, and so the government was shut down for a while, and then somebody caved, and I don't know, it's just all kind of nonsensical. And now, the key compromise that the Republicans wanted was to postpone the individual mandate for a year, is now being recognized by Democrats everywhere as absolutely necessary because they fouled up the rollout of Obamacare. So now, what's happening is the Democrats are about ready to do the one thing that really they wouldn't do that wouldn't allow them to compromise with Republicans. So I would say that it's obvious that the Democrats have proven themselves incapable of even thinking about the situation they're in. But you know,
at least they try. They're trying to do.
They're trying to do what?
They're trying to fix the health care problem, and they're trying to protect the people.
They don't even know what's in. They didn't know what was in Obamacare when they voted for it. Anyone who voted for it and didn't read it deserves no respect. No one read it. I mean, literally, not even Nancy Pelosi knew what was in the thing. She wouldn't tell us what was in it until they passed it. Remember her great line? You have to wait until we pass the bill until you find out what's in it.
Republican lies.
That's not a Republican lie. That's what she said. I mean, you can go look at them, but it's on YouTube. It's the same thing as this Elizabeth Warren nonsense. She's right there, and she said it, and she was ebullient about it. She was smiling about how you have to wait until to pass it, but that's not how responsible people pass legislation.
So
that's how.
When I prove you wrong on this, that all of your other arguments are going to collapse.
Well, no, it's just one little argument, but so it has. But there's no that you can't prove me wrong about a fact like that. I'm not mistaken. I mean, I've seen it. I probably watched that speech 15 times. Nancy Pelosi's.
It's Googleable.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish Miss Warren's speech.
Well, this is a long damn speech. I mean, we're only 3 minutes in.
We're at 30 minutes, so we better stop now and just do the next part. It'll be. We're going to work our way through this until we've got it done.
Enduring Elizabeth Warren. We should call this Enduring Elizabeth Warren. The dimmest bulb to speak progressivism since, I don't know.
Well, you say dim bulb, I say idealist.
Well, somebody who lies that much, I don't think she's an idealist. I think she's an actual planned criminal agent of the state.
No, you can't tell me.
She just lied. I mean, she's calling a bunch of Tea Party people who are not anarchists.
Well, maybe it's not lying. Maybe there's just a... part of this is politics. Part of this is politics.
Or you get to lie. You get to call your... She's talking about Republicans not being able to compromise, and then she calls her enemies something they're not, and then she wonders, why can't we deal with these people? They're just awful. Well, that's just stupid. Anybody who goes this gambit doesn't deserve the time of day.
But do you think she believes what she's saying, or do you think it's all strategic?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think she believes they're anarchists. She's just trying to call them anarchists because she knows that there are some a small proportion of the Tea Party movement, was it 20%, is libertarian, and libertarians sometimes pretend to be against government. They say that libertarians want to limit government. It's not rocket science. But of course, some libertarians don't understand their own rhetoric, and they pretend to be against government. What some are definitely is against the state, which is an institution of monopolized government, and that's an interesting issue. Has nothing to do with anything she's talking about, because what she's talking about is the institutions of governance, and libertarians are definitely for some of them, and Tea Party people are mostly not libertarians, and they're pretty much for all of them. These are the people, after all, who said, don't let the government take away our Medicare. These people are often not the brightest bulbs on the planet. They just want everybody to live within their means, including government, and she will lie to preserve the ability to spend without any limit whatsoever.
Or let's say she's willing to lie to do her duty for the American people. Sometimes you have to do things that are ugly, but she's up against a really ugly, nasty opponent.
Yeah. I don't consider the Tea Party ugly and nasty. In fact, if the two popular movements in recent times that had protests and mass rallies were the Tea Party and the occupiers. Amongst the occupiers, there was vandalism, littering, rape, murder, and defecation on police cars. Among the Tea Party protests, occasionally you'd find some wacko with a weird racist sign, but that was like 1 out of 1,000. Most of the signage and most of the chanting was all saying one thing: pretty much, government, live within your means. No more nonsense from Washington. And of course, the big thing about Obamacare, and one of the reasons they were opposed to it, was that Social Security is insolvent, Medicare is insolvent, Medicaid is insolvent, we don't know how we're going to pay for them, and the Democrats decide, let's start a new social welfare entitlement.
Well, we better stop. But I think it's almost quaint how naive you are about all these questions, so I do want to continue these discussions. and try to help you out, because I do care about you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So until next time.